Hi, I'm Brent Stafford, and this is RegWatch by RegulatorWatch.com. For the great people of northern British Columbia, calculating the economic impact of the Wet'suwet'en pipeline protests is just another exercise in a long, treacherous battle with radical environmentalists hell-bent on destroying the resource economy. And the battle has taken its toll. What the protesters want is to level, and not just level the playing field, but to level results. To achieve leveling, activists thwart multi-billion-dollar resource projects through obstinacy and militancy. They strangle resource development at the local level, destroying family and community throughout. Joining us today on RegWatch to discuss the impact of these protests is Dave Johnston, founder of the North Matters, a pro-resources grassroots advocacy group that promotes unity and action in solidarity with BC's resource citizens. Dave, thanks for coming on RegWatch.
I really appreciate you having me on today, Brent.
Well, we're speaking to you live from Kitimat in Northern BC, which is certainly a part of the epicenter of all the resource troubles in the province.
Our resource industries are under attack. We decided to start a volunteer group because we heard there were a lot of different issues going on with LNG Canada in getting their project over the finish line.
Most of our viewers already know there was a breakthrough in the talks today between the Wet'suwet'en and provincial and federal negotiators.
We want to thank Dennis Boss and really all the Dennis Sakase Sake people. This has been a real learning. Wagoose is about respect, and it is about making sure, as Chief Was said, that this never happens again. That the rights holders and will always be at the table, and that is the way through for Canada. If we continue to move on what the Prime Minister has said on the recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership, and that's the way forward.
The only conclusion I can draw from this, since we don't have information on the details of what this agreement entails and that it'll be discussed within the Wet'suwet'en Nation between the clans, I think that from what I can judge from that, it seems like it is a very positive thing, a very positive step forward. Up until this point, it seems as if there's been one group from the Wet'suwet'en who have been going at this alone, and nobody else's voice has been covered or talked about.
How do you mean by that? Do you mean other First Nations, or do you mean other Canadians?
No, I mean Wet'suwet'en members within the nation seem to have been muzzled from getting their point out. You know, whether they support it or not. The fact that these chiefs are now including the entire nation in this discussion and going and getting their opinion on whatever this agreement says, to me is a positive thing, because it really does start with that dialogue within the nation without any outside influence. All these protests should stop now. You know, just like Coastal GasLink stopped, the RCMP stopped to give them time to talk about this. They have come to an agreement. I think it's time for all these extremists and people that are breaking the law across Canada to also stop and give this nation some time to heal and heal amongst each other and talk amongst each other and not be involved and not stick their hands into it. I mean, there's a lot of these groups who are fundraising for themselves on behalf of the Wet'suwet'en Nation, when we don't even understand how many of them support it and how many don't support it.
Is this really likely to end? I mean, how could it end? I mean, as all revolutionaries will say, it's never about the issue, it's always about the revolution.
It kind of makes you wonder, where is this all coming from? And why is this region targeted? I mean, if you look at the Lower Mainland, they're a resource-built city. They're a resource community. They were built on resources. And it's our turn now in the north to have those same opportunities, but it seems like we're being targeted.
You just got to shake your head and go, how many projects have been lost over the decades, certainly in the last 10, 15 years. And then with the tech announcement, I know that's Alberta, but I mean, we're talking about Canada's resource sector here. I mean, how much has been lost?
What we do know is we were really close to having an LNG export facility built in Prince Rupert, and they had, a lot of support. I would almost say overwhelming support, but the silent or the loud minority seemed to get all the attention of media and government, and the silent majority just stood back and let it happen. And that could be a contributing factor to why people in our community wanted to volunteer, stand up and start getting involved, because we didn't want to see the same thing happening to the LNG Canada project.
So when you say silent majority, I mean, is it apathy or is it fear?
I think it's a little bit of fear. There are intimidation tactics are one of the main tactics that these extreme, and let's just get one thing clear, there are a lot of environmental groups out there that do good things. But there are a lot out there based out of, whether it be Vancouver or other major cities, who seem to not actually do any physical work when it comes to, improving fish returns in rivers or doing bird counts. But we have a lot of these outside groups based in city centers who come into our communities with the intention of just shutting down proposed projects with no other explanation other than just blanket statements, that, it's going to destroy the water, it's going to destroy the air, but they don't have any substantial, they just stir up emotions and try to get people to react emotionally, which causes division and causes polarization and brings all these negative effects into our communities. The victims of this game that these extreme environmentalists are playing are all the community members. And that's what we're trying to get out, that the information that they're putting out, in the most part, is disinformation. So, I mean, we've had the Wilderness Committee send, and they've sent these flyers, and they're just propaganda flyers, up to every house in Kitimat. They've mailed them out. I don't know how they get so much money to do this kind of stuff, but they sent out these propaganda flyers that was just riddled with disinformation about fracking and pipelines and LNG carriers. It was just riddled with disinformation. And that's what they do. They try to mislead the public and lie and deceive the public to get whatever political outcome that they're trying to get. And we need people to start waking up and realizing what's happening, and that they're being deceived. They're being duped. They're being taken advantage of. People that get behind these types of groups, they're being lied to, and they need to start realizing that. And they need to realize that, they need to start looking out for their neighbors. They need to start looking out for their family and friends, not backing these groups that are furthering the benefit of other countries. When these industries divest from Canada, they're going to another country to do the exact same thing. But in most cases, they're not doing it as well as we do, and they're not taking as good care of the environment as we do. That's kind of why we started the North Matters, is because we want to show people exactly how easy it is and what they can do to actually start standing up for the communities and fighting back against these, I'll say, radicals that want to destroy our way of life.
But it's not just U.S. radicals, Dave. It's Canadian radicals. It's our own citizens, our own fellow neighbors.
Right. So cutting through all the disinformation and the Disney-like presentations, that's kind of what we want to do. But we want to give people the opportunity to make a stand in their community and make a stand for their kids and their kids' kids, of being able to stand up to this disinformation that's being fed into their community and stand up and say, no, that's wrong. We're going to stand up and we're going to call this out. We're going to make a presentation to our municipal council. We're going to write an op-ed. We're going to put on a information event, local community information event.
I mean, this thing is metastasized to just shutting down, a Run a River dam or something like that. I mean, we're at the part here now where nobody could credibly say that you could build any project of scale in Canada. Mm-hmm. That is like, we're going to turn into Venezuela here.
Yeah, or worse. And, I have to shake my head when I hear the types of solutions from these groups that are trying to shut everything down. That we need to expand our tourism industry and we can survive off tourism. Well, I would challenge you to show me one country in the world that relies solely on tourism that isn't a third world country. It moves from one campaign to another, and it's all the same groups involved. So if you look at the Bill C-48, Bill C-69, mm-hmm. It was all these groups were focusing 100% attention on that. But at the same time, they're so advanced over the last 35 years in their strategy and ways to infiltrate into government and into First Nations communities and hold them down in poverty and run with policies in government that hurt our communities.
For the group of people who like to get all their, buns in a knot over foreign influence in, say, the U.S. political election when they don't even live in the U.S., they should be really concerned about this kind of influence in Canada. And because really they're taking the decision-making ability away from Canadians by supporting this kind of misinformation, for the lack of a better word.
Now that the hereditary chiefs are speaking with their community and trying to heal their community and give people in their community a voice that they haven't had for so long, and that's happening right now. If this other stuff continues, we understand that it's not about the hereditary chiefs. There's a bigger issue here. There's a bigger thing going on. And I guarantee you all those groups who are involved in it, Sierra Club, Wilderness Committee, West Coast Environmental Law, Canadian Center for Policy Alternatives, all these different groups who are involved in this right now and weighing in and sticking their nose in and fundraising for their own gain. Watch what happens when that campaign dies down. Watch where they all go, because they'll all go to the next thing. And that's my prediction, is it's the land use stuff in the interior. The North Matters is nonpartisan, and we try to stay away from the politics of everything and focus on policy for our communities, what policies are going to best build up and help and sustain our communities. But my own personal view is that there's been a complete departure from leadership in our country. You're just not seeing any kind of leadership. Lawlessness and, a small handful of people seems to be running the country right now.
And what about the, issue with RCMP getting forced, out of the lands as a part of the bargaining tactics?
Well, that's scary too. We're a country of the rule of law, and the BC Supreme Court served an injunction and for this company that has crossed all its T's and dotted all its I's and had support of all 20 First Nations, all municipal elected officials, all provincial elected officials, all federal elected officials. It had support from everyone that represents the nation. And it seems, a few people who oppose it are now the talk of every single local, provincial, federal media outlet. And for the RCMP to have to leave from doing their job, which is uphold the rule of law in our country, speaks volumes to the lack of leadership. True reconciliation is working together and sharing what we have for the betterment of our communities and the healing of our society and our neighbors and our friends. we need to start learning how to work together and stop grandstanding on different claims or different racial positions or, you know, any of these types of positions. It should just be dropped. You know, we need to start talking about healing. You know, this is a nation that we're talking about, the Wet'suwet'en Nation, that's torn apart. And, you know, there's a lot of people that are at fault for that. There's the government, there's these Angos, there's industry, there's, you know, locals. There's a lot of different people. But what needs to happen for true reconciliation to start happening is the conversation needs to change.